Hello everyone and welcome. It's Hugh here at Loxon and I'm here with this video to show you the solution for our earlier config challenge. So just to give a quick reminder on what the config challenge was, I have the notes here for me. So what we have is an open plan area of a house that contains a kitchen, dining room and living room all in one open plan area. And what we have is spots throughout the entire area, 2 motion sensors to get general motion for the area, pendulums above the dining table, and LED strip under the mid-level units shining down on the worktops in the kitchen. We then have a number of switches in this area. So we have 1 switch by the main door, a touch surface over by the kitchen, a touch switch by the dining table, and a remote air over at the living room. And what we want to happen is for different switches to be able to do different things. So we want the main switch, first we want the motion sensors to just bring on general everyday lighting. We want the main door switch to go to bright lights. We want the dining room switch to go to dining lights, to eating lights. The living room remote air to go to a relaxing mood. And then finally the touch surface over at the kitchen to mix in a cooking mood. And that was the main bulk of our assignment. And then the extra little bit to figure out was how we can automate the relaxing mood based on when we're watching TV. Brilliant. So now that we've gone through that and everything that we need to do, I am going to switch my webcam over to be on my demo case. There we go. And I am going to open up my config file here. So as you can see, I've got started by adding a lighting controller onto a page. I have also pre-added all of the fittings that I'm going to be controlling and all of the switches, motion sensors, and everything else. Now, the first thing that I've done is with Loxon Tree products, you have the ability to actually put them into a lighting group. So you can see here on one of my spots, there's the option for lighting group. This massively simplifies the config that you're going to put on the page, because if you've got a room that's got 6 spots and you want to control them into 2 groups of 3, you can assign them all into 2 lighting groups and just have 2 outputs on the page. Makes the page much, much neater. And so that's what I've done. I've created lighting groups. Even though I said that our spots were generally going to be controlled together through the everyday mood from the motion sensors, I've still put them into 3 different groups because it probably is going to be nice if we can do a little bit of granular control. So if I get started on it, let's start with, well, we've got our lighting controller here in the kitchen dining room. And one really big note, I'm only going to stick 1 single lighting controller there, because this is a single open area. Having 3 different lighting controllers for each different area is going to get very complex when it comes to user use, because our switch by the main door that we may want to go to bright mood on all of the lighting controllers by default, if I've already turned one of the lights to bright, let's say in the dining room, and I then go and press the door switch, it'll turn the kitchen and the living room bright, but the dining, because that was already bright, it's going to scroll on to the next mood. So it makes sense to just have 1 single lighting controller. And then if we get started with everything that we want to happen, our motion sensors should bring the lighting onto an everyday mood. So let's get started by putting all of our lights onto this lighting controller. So I'm going to put my 3 circuits of spots, or my 3 groups of spots on there first, then my pendulums, and then finally my LED strip under the counter. So I'm going to end up with 5 outputs, and I'm also just going to make sure that those outputs have nice names as well. So dining room spots, kitchen spots, living room spots, dining room pendulums, and kitchen units. Perfect. So next, my motion sensors need to bring on lights to every day. So I'm going to take both of my motion sensors out, and I'm going to put them on the MV input of the lighting controller. Now, because these are digital inputs, and this is a digital input on the lighting controller, I can just put them both on there because it's automatically ORed. I don't need to add an OR block. For my brightness inputs though, I am going to need to do something with them, because I can't put both brightness sensors straight onto AIB, because it would OR the values rather than take a specific value from them. So what I would normally do if I had multiple brightness sensors is I would normally do something, well, I'd either take the dimmest one typically and use that one, or I would average them, or something one of the people did for their config files that they sent me that I really liked was they used a min-max block. And what a min-max block does is it outputs the minimum value and the maximum value, so you could take the minimum value from both sensors. But I'm just going to do an average block because that's what I've always done. And so that's my motion sensor in there, and that's my lights on the output. So the next thing I want to do is have my everyday mood. So I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to create a new mood. That mood I'm going to move above off, and I'm going to call this everyday. And for this mood, I'm going to have all of the spots go to about 50% warm white. So just general ambient lighting. Not enough to blind us, just enough to see what we're doing. And I'm going to leave the pendulums and the kitchen units out of it. And then the motion sensor needs to bring the lights on to this mood. So under the automatic tab, I need to say during any active operating mode, we select the everyday mood on motion. And that is point number 1 done. The next thing is we need the switch by the main door to bring on bright lighting. And so to do this, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to reverse the inputs for these two moods, because input O is quite important because it's used for things like the burglar alarm and that goes off and various other things. So it's quite an important mood. But because I'm not going to use everyday generally from the switches, because the everyday mood is being used through motion, I'm actually just going to swap these two around. So they're both going to be there. We've still got everyday from motion, but the T51 input is now bright. And as you can see from bright by default brings all of the lights on to about 80% warm white. So switch by main door should bring on bright. So now that I've put bright as T51, what I need to do is find T51 in this list, tick it, and you can see it already said bright next to it. Find my door switch, there it is, and the T5 input there needs to go to T51. There we go. So that is now my door switch bringing on bright lighting. The next one is my dining table switch should bring the lights to a dining mood. So what I'm going to do is again, just double click in here and create a new mood. And this mood, I'm going to call eating. So it's going to be my eating mood. I'm actually going to move it above every day as well. And then my eating mood, I probably want my dining room spots nice and bright, probably around 80% brightness. My kitchen spots, I want to be on. I probably only want to be on that everyday kind of 50% brightness. Now this is where a level of bespokeness comes in, because everyone likes to live in their home differently. I, for one, don't like sitting down in a dining room where I'm right next to the kitchen and the kitchen's pitch black, but I'm sitting at a dining room table that has lighting. I don't like that. I'd like the rest of the open plan space to just have a bit of general lighting, so enough that I'm not scared of the monsters in the dark, but bright enough so that I can see in the space that I'm occupying. And so that's why my dining spots are going to be bright. My kitchen and my living spots are going to be at about 50%, so that everyday level. And my pendulums, they are going to be nice and bright so I can see the dining table. But my kitchen units, they don't need to be on. And there's my eating mood, and my eating mood is input T52. And if I press plus here, you can see input T52. And the way that these work is if you tie a switch to them, the first press of that switch will always go straight to that mood, and then it will scroll from that point. So by taking then our dining switch and tying that into T52, we're ensuring that on the first press of this switch, we'll go to the eating mood and it'll scroll from that point. So we'll still be able to get to all of our other moods, but this is the default for this switch, which is exactly what we want here. Okay, so that is the dining table switch, bringing the lights to an eating mood. Next, our remote air should go to a relaxing mood. So you can probably guess what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a new mood. That mood is going to be called relaxing. Again, it's going to go above every day. And my relaxing mood, I'm just going to send all of the lights to about 50% purple, because that's what I like to relax. Again, I'm going to ignore the pendulums and the kitchen units because I probably don't need those to be a part of it. And that is on input T53. So plus T53, find my remote air and take the T5 there into T53 relaxing. Remote air ticked. And the final bit on here is the touch surface should mix in a cooking mood. And so again, you've probably guessed, I need to add myself a mood. And this one I'm going to call cooking. And this is where things get a bit different. So what I'm going to do with this mood is I'm actually going to tick the mix here, and I'm going to untick the plus. And what that's going to do is whichever switch is assigned to T54 on a tap is actually going to mix in the cooking mood and leave the rest of the lights in this space as they were. And when I press it again, it's going to mix those lights back out again. So it will ignore the living room, the dining room. They will just stay exactly as they were, and it will only mix in bright cooking lights and then mix them. And that's how we accomplish a mix. And that's why a mix is great for an area like the kitchen, because it means that somebody else could be sat in the living room still watching TV with nice dim lighting, and we're not affecting them. We're just bringing on bright lights that we can see under. And the important thing with a mix is I want to leave all of the lights as off except for the lights that I want to mix in. So my kitchen spots and my kitchen units are the only two lights I'm going to assign a value to here. And then I'm going to OK that. And then I'm going to take my touch surface and I'm going to put that on T5 for cooking. I'm going to save that in. And that is the bulk of our config done. So everything apart from the little extra challenge, that is done there and then. And what I'm going to do, just to show this, is I'm going to open up the web interface. So this is the web interface here, living, dining, kitchen. And as you can see, here are all of our available moods. And I'll tell you what, just to go a little extra step with this, what I will also do is just do a tree device search, and I will actually learn in the LED strip I've got in my demo case, just so that we can showcase this working. And I'll tell you what, let's learn in that motion sensor as well. So just need to learn in that extension first. So tree extension, replace device with that one, save in. And then when that's restarted, I'll pair in the motion sensor and the LED strip. So motion sensor, yeah, that can go there. LED strip, you can see it flashing, and that goes there. Touch tree, yeah, why not? Let's put it in the dining area. And I'll just save that in. And so now that's saving, let's go back to the web interface. Any second. Here we go. So living, dining, kitchen room. You can see lights are currently off. And I would imagine if I go into live view, but I'm actually going to do live view with manual value adjustment, and I'll show you in a second why. Yep, the lights are off because it's currently pretty bright in the room I'm in. So even though I don't have a second light brightness sensor and it's showing 0 lux, the average is still working out at 66, which is a value above my maximum brightness. So that's why the motion sensor hasn't brought on lights. But if I was to say, turn on our everyday mood, as if it were the motion sensor that brought them on, I'm just going to make this so that you can see both parts of my screen at once. The really cool thing about live view with manual value adjustment is when you've done it, you can actually fake things happening. So you can see that it's still activating as if it was live view. So with my hand over the motion sensor input still going off. But I also have the ability to manually press things like my touch surface as if it was really there. Look, my LED strip is now on, but if I go back to the app, you can see that I'm still in the everyday mood. So everyday is still on, and so is cooking. And then if I press that touch surface again, you can see the LED strip mixes back out, but I'm still in the cooking mood. So that is our mix, perfectly executed there. That's just mixing in this LED strip in and out while keeping the rest of the moods as they were. And so that, in a nutshell, is the bulk and the main part of our config. And just a couple of notes to explain why I've done it the way I've done it, because I could actually make it so that every area was a mix. So I could have it that the motion sensor brings on everyday lighting, and then all of the other areas, as well as the cooking, the relaxing and the eating, will also mixes in as well. But the reason I actually haven't done that, and I've created these two as purely separate moods, is because if we think about it, if I walk into the room and the motion sensor triggers the everyday mood, and then I go over to the dining table and I tap the dining switch, which just mixes in bright lights above the dining room, but then keeps the rest of the room the same, and I forget to mix those back out and then move over to the living room and press the remote air, what does the remote air do? Does it try and mix in the relaxing scene as well as the eating scene that's already mixed in, as well as the everyday mood that's already on? Does it just switch to it? If these were all mixed, it would become very, very complex on how it would work. And the way that mix works is it'll always mix in the brightest lights. So if the eating mood was already brighter on, let's say, the spots than the relaxing mood was trying to mix in, the relaxing mood mixing in actually wouldn't do anything. And so that's why I've only got the cooking mood mixing in and the others are being changed too. So that's my explanation for why I've decided to do it this way. And the second reason is, even though I've said that we want just general lighting from the spots across the whole of this area, I've created the spots as 3 separate circuits because it gives me that power of saying, you know what, when I'm eating, I want the spots above the dining area to be brighter, but the others to be at a lower level. So I've got that kind of granularity by doing this. Okay, brilliant. So now that's the main part of the challenge done. Let's go to the little extra challenge. The little extra challenge is we want automatically for the relaxing mood to come on when we turn the TV on. Now, there are several different ways we could do this. We could pull a spare button from the remote air that we're not using that we could press and it goes straight to relaxing, or it maybe even controls the TV itself through a virtual output or something. It seems a little bit too much because I'll then still have to pick up the TV remote anyway. I could have a IR control air. IR control air, there we go. So I could have an IR control air that doesn't do any control of the TV, but just purely listens for the on and the off. But again, that seems a little bit convoluted because whenever we do anything with config, we should always think of something that we could replicate project to project quite nicely. And the IR control air, while it's great, it would mean us having to learn in the IR command from every single telly on every single job we do. So for me, for some basic automation like this, the best way to do it would actually be to put the TV on a smart socket. And the reason being is that the smart socket has an energy meter built in. So we can actually take the power from the smart socket and we could put that into something like a threshold switch. And with a threshold switch, what we can do is we can say at what value does it go on and at what value does it go off. So I looked at the values for my TV at home. My TV at home pulls around 100 watts when it's on and around 0.3 watts when it's off. So what I'll do, because power is measured in kilowatts, I would say that the on value would be about 90 watts, which is 0.09, and I'd say the off value, so when it turns back off again, would probably be when it's down to about 10 watts, because even when there's nothing playing, my TV is still drawing at least 90 watts. And that's then into the threshold switch, and all I need to do then is take this output and make it so that I'm only taking a pulse from this output rather than just turning it completely on. Because if I just tied Hugh here straight into relaxing, because that would output a pulse for longer than a second, it would actually mix in the mood rather than switching to it. So again, you've seen me use it loads of times, edge detection. So I can then just take this threshold switch into edge detection and just take the rising edge and put that into relaxing. And the only other thing I would do is just make sure that the pulse that was sent from the edge detection block was under a second, because it would mix in otherwise. Other than that, save in, and that is our relaxing mood automated. I could, if I wanted, take the falling edge pulse and turn the lights off, or put the lights to bright, or to everyday, or to anything else I wanted for the TV. But I personally would choose not to do that. The reason being is that, let's say it's 8 in the evening, I've just finished having dinner, I've turned the TV on, so my lights have gone to relaxing, and I'm now watching TV all throughout the evening. It's got to 11 o'clock at night. I've realized I should probably go to bed, and I turn the TV off. If this edge detection block then turned the lights to bright and I was a little bit sleepy and a little bit tired, I'd be probably quite disgruntled by that. But if the lights just stayed at relaxing, I'd probably be okay with that, because I'm going to double tap as I walk out the room anyway, and that would turn all the lights off. So that is how I would personally choose to have it. And then the one last thing I would do, and I would do this for any lighting controller, is I actually untick the plus on off. So I take it off the ability to scroll through on the switch to force the user of the house into that habit of double pressing to leave a room. And then there is our configuration done and sorted. And if I just go back to the app when this is all saved in, just to show you this threshold switch working, because again, the power of manual adjustment on live view. So if I'm in this room here and I just have the lights off to start with, I then start live view with manual value adjustment, and we go above that level which we said was on. So you can see that went on then, and back in here, look, we are now at our relaxing mood. Perfect. So our relaxing mood has automatically come on when we turn the TV on. Excellent. I really hope you've enjoyed this, guys. Please join me again next time. Thank you very much, and goodbye.